Welcome you all today to our last wellness event with our wonderful USC occupational therapy students. And I am going to go ahead and leave it to them to start. Ladies, take it away.
Alrighty, I will be sharing my screen here really quick. So I'm just gonna pull that up. And, all right, can everyone see this okay?
Yep.
Good, okay, great. All right, well, welcome everyone to our final presentation. Today, we really wanted to provide some time to talk about cognition and cognitive health and ways to promote our cognitive health in our daily lives. So as with all of our presentations, this is really meant to be a safe space for everyone and a place of open dialogue. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to use the chat button or raise your hand or just unmute yourself. So to start off, we just have an agenda for you guys, and we're going to start off with defining cognition and functional cognition, and these things in relation to age-related changes with cognition. We will also be discussing some of the cognitive disorder risk factors associated with the cognitive disorders as well. Next, we will go into the occupational therapy's role in cognition and discuss cognitive health, as well as optimizing cognition as we age. We'll then provide some tips on training our brains and specifically some brain games and ways to sharpen our minds, and also provide some compensatory strategies as well. And then we will finish our presentation with just a few reminders and time for question and answers. We will also be providing a resource for everyone, and I believe this will be put on the Emeriti website as well. And these resources are just really about cognition and cognitive health. And there's a couple different sections. So there's one section that talks about cognitive changes and tips to combat these changes, as well as some resources for caregiver support and caregivers that are working with somebody or caring for somebody that has some cognitive changes that they're experiencing. And then there's also some information on that resource page with regards to our GAP program, and Rachel will be providing a little bit more information on that a little bit later on. So to start off, what is cognition and what is functional cognition? Cognition is an information processing function of the brain, and it includes things like attention, memory, and executive functions. And that includes things like planning or problem solving and self-awareness. Functional cognition specifically refers to the thinking and processing skills that we need to accomplish our everyday activities in our daily lives. And that's things like from financial or household or medication management to volunteer activities or things like driving and working. So functional cognition is really that interaction between our cognitive skills and then our self-care and our community living skills. So next we have a poll for you guys, and these are just some true or false statements, and they are related to aging and our brains. And a lot of these questions or statements we will be kind of diving further into throughout our presentation. So our first poll question is, or statement is, older adults can't learn new things. This is just a true or false.
Oh.
And I'll give about
I don't think we did the poll yet. If someone,
you guys see it?
No, there's no poll.
Oh, I left it on the little table there.
Here we go. Sorry about that. So we'll give about a minute to answer this question. All righty. Okay, I'm going to end the poll in about 10 more seconds. Okay, so let's see if I can share these results with you guys. So most of you guys said false, and your response is correct. So older adults can learn new things. Older adults have the ability to learn new things, create memories, improve their performance in a variety of skills. And while aging does often come with changes in our thinking, many cognitive changes are positive, like having, knowledge and insight from a lifetime of experiences and being able to apply that information to, other experiences that come up. Okay. So next, I'm going to launch the next poll. So this one is, it's inevitable for older people to get dementia. It'll take about 30 seconds to answer this one. About 5 more seconds on this one. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to share these results really quick. All right, so this is also false. Dementia is not a normal part of aging. And although the risk of dementia grows as people get older, it's not inevitable. And many people live, into their 90s and beyond without significant declines in their thinking or behavior and things that are characterized with dementia. Nevertheless, if you do have any serious concerns about your memory or your thinking, or you notice changes, make sure to contact your primary care provider. Alrighty, the next one is, I'm going to stop sharing and move to the third poll. And our third poll question is, if a family member has Alzheimer's disease, I will have it too. I'll take another about 30 seconds to answer this question. Take about 5 more seconds to answer this one. Okay, I'm going to end the poll here and share the results. All righty. So again, with this one, this is a false statement. A person's chance of having Alzheimer's disease may be higher if they have a family history of it, because there are some genes that are associated with an increased risk. However, having a parent that has it does not necessarily mean that someone will develop these same changes. Again, though, if you are having any concerns about this, please make sure to contact your primary healthcare provider. Okay, we've got a few more for you guys. So I'm going to do the fourth one. And this is, learning a new language is only for the young. Take another about 20 seconds to answer this question. Alrighty, I'm going to end the poll in about 5 more seconds. All right, I'm going to end it and share the results. Alrighty. So yeah, everyone got this one correct. It is usually easier for children to pick up on a new language, but as adults, we can learn new languages. And in some countries like Sweden, it's actually common for retired people to take classes in a second or a third language. Okay, the next one is older adults are doomed to forget things. Let's take another 30 seconds to answer this question. We'll take another about 5 more seconds to answer this question. All right, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. All right, so this one was a little bit more split. This statement is actually false. So being forgetful about, details like names and facts can really happen to anybody. No matter age or memory, poor memory can often be attributed to a lack of attention. So this is something that we will, with regards to, we'll kind of go further into in our presentation. And I'm going to share the last question for you all. And that is, our brains change as we age. Take about 15 more seconds to answer this question. All righty, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll here and share the results. So yes, this is a true statement. And while our brains change, it can also be both positive and, sometimes we have some memory difficulties, or we have those kind of negative changes. We also have a lot of positive changes. We wanted to, first of all, take a moment to thank you all for taking the time to participate in these different statements and questions and just answering them. And we also wanted to next just provide a little bit of information on how our brains might change as we age. So some older adults, like I was saying, might experience some age-related cognitive decline. And some of those things can include a decline in episodic memory, and that can be, difficulties recalling or re-experiencing things from our past. Reduced capacity to pay attention, that's kind of a debated concept, but also a reduced speed of processing. Also, a need for more time with that to complete complex activities. And due to a decreased perceptual skills, it causes additional cognitive skills to be used when we're doing things, and therefore less cognitive resources available to complete the actual task at hand. Some people might also experience decreased working memory capabilities, and this is impacting our ability to kind of hold information for short periods of time while we're using or working with the information. And finally, sensory changes might also contribute to cognitive changes that somebody experiences. If you have changes in your vision or your hearing, it can also impact the way that we process things. So while some people might experience some of these cognitive changes in cognition that are negatively impacting our function are not part of healthy aging, and they're often pathological in nature. So some of these pathological impairments in functional cognition can be associated with different factors. And some of those factors include human genetics and/or development, things like learning disabilities, neurological diseases, injuries, or disorders. And these are things that affect the brain as well as the nerves throughout the body and the spinal cord. And those are, some examples are stroke or traumatic brain injury or Parkinson's disease. Also, there's factors of mental illness that can be associated with cognitive disorders, and those are conditions that affect mood or thinking or behavior things like major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, or substance use disorders. And finally, transient or continuing life stresses and changes. So conditions that cause temporary or chronic stress. And those can be things like anxiety disorders or stress-related disorders, or even grief and loss that we experience. So what is OT's role in cognition and promoting functional cognition with somebody? Occupational therapists work with clients, their families, and their other support system to set collaborative goals with intervention priorities that usually begin with basic activities of daily living. And those are things like dressing or bathing or grooming. And they can also include more difficult tasks like preparing meals and driving. The intervention strategies that OTs often use are either remediation or compensation techniques. And when they're combined, it's a process of restoring and learning adaptive techniques to improve function. Remediation techniques use a restorative approach, and they are basically restoring the impaired skill that somebody is experiencing. Whereas compensatory techniques are approaches of teaching ways to compensate for impaired function. And we'll be looking at both types of these techniques today. So in a way of trying to provide some of these techniques for everyone, we wanted to look at these restorative and compensatory techniques through the idea of cognitive health and these tips and tools for cognitive health. So the CDC defines cognitive health as when a healthy brain can perform all the mental processes that are collectively known as cognition, including the ability to learn things, intuition, judgment, language, and remembering. And according to the National Institute of Aging, research is still evolving, but evidence is strong that people can reduce their risk of cognitive decline and promote their cognitive health by making key lifestyle changes. So next, I'm going to pass it on to Elizabeth, who's going to look further into some of these lifestyle changes that we can make to optimize our cognitive health as we age.
Thanks, Alyssa. So to emphasize what she just said, the good news is that we do have evidence that we can optimize our cognitive health throughout the lifespan as we age by making key lifestyle changes. And the literature points to 3 specific areas, which are physical health, mentally stimulating activities, and social engagement. And it's also interesting to note that for those who attended our presentation on wellness, all 3 of these areas are on the wellness wheel that we took a look at. So first, we'll start with physical activity. Specifically, the literature points to aerobic or cardiovascular fitness and training, which includes walking, jogging, swimming, or biking, really anything that gets your heart pumping and moving oxygen throughout your body. And I mentioned this in our wellness presentation, but as a reminder, the World Health Organization recommends adults and older adults should do at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic physical activity per week. So this optimizes cognitive health by improving your overall health, but also because cardiovascular training increases what's called cerebral flow, or the movement of blood throughout your brain, which means that you're getting a better supply of oxygen and nutrients to your brain tissue. This is why doctors say that good heart health, which in addition to physical activity includes a healthy diet, leads to good brain health. So in sum, improving heart health can have protective factors against cognitive decline. We also wanted to stress the importance of fall prevention and safety, because if you're at risk of falling, you're at risk of hitting your head and potentially experiencing a traumatic brain injury. The World Health Organization recommends balance and strength training be done 3 or more days per week, which can help to prevent falls and thus protect your brain. So next, our second area is mentally stimulating activities. It's very important that these activities are novel and challenging. And this is because learning something new and challenging your brain is what leads to the growth and development of neurons, or the basic working unit of the brain, as well as something called plasticity, which we'll get into more detail later. And research studies have found that cognitively demanding novel activities can enhance memory function in older adults. Examples of these activities that we pulled from the National Institute of Aging include doing a cooking, art, dance, language, or computer class, forming or joining a book or film club, or learning or relearning a musical instrument. So lastly, we have social engagement, and there is evidence that social isolation and loneliness creates a higher risk of cognitive decline. But the good news is that there's also evidence that doing meaningful activities with other people can maintain and improve cognitive function. This can look like regular contact with friends and family, volunteering, engaging in activities with others. These are all great ways to stay socially engaged. And we do understand that this can be especially difficult in our current times, but even joining us for a presentation and being a part of the Emeriti Center is a great way to stay socially engaged. Now, Catherine will tell us about balance.
So as a small summary to what Elizabeth had said, we know it can be a lot trying to remember how many minutes of exercise we need each week or finding the perfect activity to do. So we just wanted to emphasize that the most important thing is having a good balance in your overall health routines. On top of lifestyle changes and health routines, research also shows that finding a balance of different activities helps the brain use and strengthen different skills. So this leads us into the question, does training your brain work? The short answer is yes. Trying different activities and having a good balance in your routines contributes to your brain health. And the long answer is yes, because of two concepts. One of them is called neuroplasticity, and the other one is called cognitive reserve. So neuroplasticity, also known as brain plasticity, refers to how our brains can adapt and change in order to master new skills, store memories, and discover new information. Your brain has the ability to learn and grow as you age. And this is because our brains have different neurons that communicate with each other through signals. And these signals are transmitted through something called a synapse, which is basically a connection between two cells in your brain. We have a lot of different synapses in our brain. So when we are doing different activities, the more we practice that skill, the more it strengthens those connections between the cells. So over time, certain pathways get strengthened, whereas other pathways are deleted when we don't use it anymore. So this whole process is called neuroplasticity, and it naturally occurs in our brains when we go through different life experiences. But these changes are also activated when we train our minds through different activities. We also know that over time, doing certain activities can be more difficult, and this leads us into the next topic of cognitive reserve. So cognitive reserve is your brain's ability to improvise and find different ways of getting a job done. With this concept, there's an idea of building up a reserve in your brain of different strategies and pathways so that you can access it in different moments. And this concept originated in around 1980s when researchers were testing a group of people with brain changes similar to Alzheimer's. And surprisingly, they found that some individuals did not show symptoms of dementia or showed symptoms much later on than other people. And researchers concluded that it was because these individuals had a large enough cognitive reserve to offset damages. So since then, research shows that people with greater cognitive reserve are better able to offset symptoms of brain changes. So a bigger cognitive reserve can also provide you with more strategies when you go through stress, because during that time, your brain is required to do much work. And one of the best ways to build that reserve is to engage in activities. So on the next slide, according to research for older adults, there are 3 components of choosing an activity that will have the most benefits. We also want to add a small disclaimer. These are some tips for people who are currently not diagnosed with any cognitive issues. And for those who are, there are a different set of tips that are not the same ones as we will be going over. So when it comes to choosing an activity to sharpen your mind, one of the first things is to find an activity that would be considered somewhat challenging. You don't want to pick something that is too hard, but having an element of challenge engages your brain to learn something new and offers you the chance to improve. And this also doesn't have to be a new activity. If you don't want to start something new, finding ways to grow in your current activity is also important because it challenges you to increase your skill set and knowledge. The second aspect is complexity. So similar to the first point, you don't want to pick something that is too complex, but having some complexity in an activity helps build that cognitive reserve. In a 2013 study, researchers found that older adults who did complex activities, for example, digital photography or quilting, scored better on working and long-term memory tests than those who did familiar activities like reading or doing crossword puzzles. So a more complex activity helps your brain work on specific processes like problem solving and creative thinking. And the third element of doing an activity is practice. Practice solidifies the skill that your brain is working on and makes it more permanent. So now we're going to switch gears a little and do an activity called the Stroop Test. So the Stroop Test is a way to test how well you can juggle different components that conflict with each other. So in this task, there's a word on the screen. For example, the word green, but it's outlined in a different color. So this word is in red. In this task, you need to name the color of the word instead of reading the word itself. So in this example, when you see this word on the screen, you would just say red. As your brain is figuring out this conflicting information, it's exercising different components in order for you to complete this task. So now Alyssa will be playing a video of the Stroop test, and there will be different words that flash on the screen. And with each word, you will say the color of the word to yourself. We also wanted to add that there's no specific score to this. It's more of a fun exercise that you can do on your own. And all the OT students have tried this test before, and it was extremely hard for all of us. So don't worry if it's difficult for you as well. Yeah, so now Alyssa will be playing the video. I saw some of you guys chuckling to yourselves or mouthing the words. So as Alyssa is pulling out the next slide, I just want to hear, what were some of your experiences with the Stroop test? Feel free to unmute or write in the chat.
I couldn't do round 4 at all. I mean, it was just way too fast. Like I made it through round 3 and then I couldn't do it.
Yeah, same
We were good
here.
at 1, 2, and 3 and blue 4 too. So.
Yeah.
I also was challenged by the 4th round, and I couldn't tell if that color, because I'm an artist, was pink. You know, I kind of wanted to go delving into the real name of the colors like chartreuse. And anyway, as I tried to teach my daughter colors as her first skill in life rather than letters or numbers. So
wow, we have an artist in the midst. Yeah, so in the chat, I see some other people couldn't get the last round. It was super fast. Someone said it twisted my tongue. Couldn't do the last round. It gave me a headache. Yeah, so this test was really interesting because it's kind of a way, it helps us see how we focus on juggling different information. And later on, oh yeah, someone said I needed some feedback. Yeah, I noticed that lots of people were verbalizing the word and trying to say it out loud to help them focus. That's a really good strategy too.
It might have been nice to know the colors ahead of time, because when you flash something that was pinkish, orange, it's hard to come up with the word, and saying it out loud took longer time.
That's true. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for participating and for your feedback. Now Rachel's going to talk a little about brain games and how we can exercise different parts of our brains.
Thanks, Catherine, for leading us through that fun activity. So these mentally stimulating games like the Stroop Test, along with activities like doing a crossword, playing chess, they are all considered brain games that have been said to improve our brain function and make us smarter. So probably many of you are wondering, do they actually work? So some studies have found that these brain games can improve selective brain skills and build up cognitive reserve. A recent research from last year showed that commercially available computerized cognitive games help improve cognitive function in people aged 60 years and older without cognitive impairment by helping them sharpen certain cognitive skills that tend to wane with age. But however, other studies have found no connection. So this conflicting evidence tells us that doing these various brain games and mentally stimulating activities alone will not necessarily reduce your risk of dementia or protect you from memory loss, but it may help you maintain overall cognitive function. And this really brings us back to what Catherine and Elizabeth mentioned throughout the presentation, that novelty is key. In order to really benefit from them, the activities must be new and challenging. And we shouldn't just focus on doing brain games. We should also think about having a healthy lifestyle and being socially engaged, as Elizabeth shared earlier. But in this slide, I did include some popular brain game apps that you can download on your phone and check out. So we have Luminosity, Elevate, and FitBrains. Yeah, we'll go to the next slide. So what we've mentioned so far were mostly remediation techniques to strengthen and or restore our cognitive skills. Now we're going to spend some time talking about compensatory strategies for impaired cognition. So one of the things that we can do is to modify the environment. So reducing clutter helps us feel less overwhelmed and be more organized so that we are able to locate our items more easily. Also, keeping your phone, wallet, keys, and things that you use on a daily basis in the same place allows you to have one less thing to worry about and remember. Also, when you're doing an important task, minimizing background distractions allows you to focus better on the task at hand. And in the next slide, we have modifying the task. So similar to the point above about keeping your things in the same place, making appointments and plans at the same time of the day makes it easier for you to remember as you maintain a predictable routine. For those of you who feel overwhelmed by having so many things on your plate, you can break the task into smaller steps and take one at a time, which allows you to focus better and have more time to process each thing. Other compensatory strategies are keeping a calendar or a checklist, or setting reminders on your phone about appointments or taking medication. Also, using mnemonic devices can help you retain certain kinds of information better. And also, there are so many other compensatory strategies that we use throughout our daily life. So if you have other strategies that you are currently using, feel free to share that in the chat. But we will go into reminders. So just a few reminders before we end our presentation today. So as Alyssa mentioned, this is our last presentation. We just want to thank you all for your interest in our presentations and our one-on-one consultations. We all really loved getting to know you. We loved hearing about your experiences and also learning from you during these 3 months of our time together. And we hope that this was also an enjoyable learning experience for you. And before we leave, we want to introduce you to the geriatric assessment program at Keck Medical School of USC. So this program is for adults over the age of 65 who have multiple medical issues, including cognitive issues, who will be seen by a team of specialists from medicine, pharmacy, social work, physical therapy, and occupational therapy. So if you're interested, you can find more information about GAP in the flyer that Elizabeth put in the chat. Also, be sure to check out the resources that we provided you at the beginning of our presentation. But yeah, that really concludes our presentation for today. Thank you for coming, and we'll transition to a Q&A for any questions that you may have.
Well, I don't have a specific question, although I'd love to delve deeper into some of this. Actually, nutrition would be a good one to focus on maybe in another event, because what you eat really does affect your brain. So that would be another research project. I did want to mention that I did go through the GAP program with one of our retired faculty a couple of years ago. And it really does bring in that interdisciplinary medical perspective, bringing in all the different clinical folks that are part of healthcare. And the person that I went through it with did not have cognitive decline, but because we were part of the Emeriti Center and we were, trying this out and learning about it, he decided to go through it with us. And it was quite fascinating, very helpful to him, and extremely helpful to me to watch this interdisciplinary team do the assessments. And I do think in the future that personalized medicine, bringing in the different disciplines, is really an excellent way to stay healthy and to learn more about how to keep healthy. I don't know if Professor Hale would want to mention that or talk about it.
Yeah, I'll just very briefly say that I am the occupational therapist who's kind of the lead OT on the geriatric assessment program. I've been doing this program for maybe about 5 or 6 years now. And so if, people have questions or want to learn more about it, please don't hesitate to reach out. We would be happy to touch base with you about that and provide more information.
So to answer one of the questions in the chat, which was about, so that's really great that you're working on different cognitive skills, doing a new language, that's awesome, and Tai Chi, that's also great for balance and fall prevention. So the question is about if crossword puzzles aren't novel, how about sudoku puzzles? So from what I was reading, it just has to be, so like if you've been doing crossword puzzles for 10, 15 years and you consider yourself an expert, then that's not really new and it's not really challenging to you. So anything that it's subjective, anything that you feel is challenging to you will assist in this. So even I know in terms of Sudoku, you can raise up to the higher level. So just making it novel and challenging for you.
So it seems that the working word here is novel. It needs to be a new activity that actually challenges you. Because I just started doing crossword puzzles, and the little ones are fun and they're easy, but the larger ones, like I'm going, what? So I figured that's really good. It takes me, I have to figure out there's ways to work around it, and kind of you guess letters and then maybe it helps you figure out the word, and also I find that a lot of things are coming back to me, like I'm going, oh shoot, I didn't think about that forever, type of thing. So I think that's pretty good. So I guess it being new is a real important aspect of it.
We have another question in the chat. What causes delayed recall? I don't know if Dr. Holt, you would have better answer, but I do know that sometimes being distracted can really delay that your memory and your ability to recall things. But if you have other things, you have Dr. Holt.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you you gave a great example, Rachel. I think ultimately a lot of things can contribute to cognitive changes, right? Everything, up to things that are maybe more concerning, right? Pathophysiological in nature. Not having enough sleep the night before can impact our cognition, right? Being really stressed, going through a distressing moment, or having dealt with, a pandemic for an entire year, and, kind of the problems and the challenges that has presented. I think there are lots of things that can contribute to changes in cognition, not just delayed recall, but ultimately, right, if there is something that is impacting maybe a little bit more seriously on your ability to function on a day-to-day basis, to perform things that you want to do or are expected to do, good to check in with your doctor just to make sure there isn't anything more concerning going on.
And I see a question about Tai Chi. So not to my knowledge of what the university community or OT is offering, but I am familiar with a program called Silver Sneakers, which is available at no cost for adults 65 plus through Medicare plans. And I think, here's the link in the chat, and they do have videos that are basic Tai Chi moves, Tai Chi for breathing. So you can access those on your own and do them at home.
You can't learn Tai Chi on Zoom. I've tried it.
It's a lot harder to do via Zoom, for sure.
You're moving around in a circle and back and forth, and you can't see what's going on. I've been taking it in my front yard with someone. It is so hard.
Yeah, I think if you can find ways to do it safely in person, I know I've seen more people doing it in the park nowadays, right? That's I think a lot of us would learn a little bit better with that format, for sure, for the reasons you just said, Karen. Absolutely.
You should have it for the community, for young people, for people, for older people.
And also, just so you guys know, the Silver Sneakers is not covered by the USC Senior Care, but I have elevated that to the University Employee Benefit Committee. We're asking for that, since the university is shifting toward wellness, but just for right now, it is not covered under the USC Senior Care.
But is it covered by Medicare?
No.
I believe most Medicare plans do cover it. There may be some exceptions. I feel like we've encountered in working with a few folks, you have to go in and kind of double check with your specific plan. But that's great to hear, Katie. We love the advocacy and action. That's wonderful. We hope for good things.
Yes, David, we did do the one Tai Chi video, but we need to do it. As Karen says, it's really hard to do it when you're not doing it in person. So we will look into that. Right now, what the Emeriti Center is looking into is providing some yoga courses. And one in particular is the chair yoga, which it sounds like it's not hard to do, but there's some really good moves on it, you know, in it. And also it's very good for folks that are sitting at a computer for long periods of time. So we are looking into that. I suggest that you send the Emeriti at usc.edu suggestions on the kinds of Zoom sessions that you would like in the future, because we're working on that. We're also partnering with some of the UC system folks. So we're always looking for new ways. I myself would love to get a little update from the students about where they're going after May, and whether or not this program has changed their perspective on what they want to do when they graduate.
I can start. I just want to start by thanking all of you so much. It's been such a pleasure working with you and seeing you every other week. So it's been really delightful for all of us. As for me, I will be doing my second level 2 fieldwork at a pediatric outpatient clinic. And then when that's over, I'll be starting my doctorate at USC. I'll be in what's called the Tailored Environmental Modification Lab. So I'll be working on looking at adults with autism in the primary care setting, children in the emergency room, just ways to modify the environment during stressful healthcare encounters. And something I'm really interested in long-term, which the Emeriti Center has really solidified this for me, is I love the idea of putting a preschool in a nursing home and fostering those intergenerational relationships and the reciprocal relationship that the very young and the other end of the spectrum can benefit one another in terms of health and wellness. So that's a lifelong research goal of mine.
That's really neat, Elizabeth, because they do it in other countries very successfully, seems like, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There is research in other countries, and I know they did one in Seattle, that there are so many benefits for each of the populations. So to get one in LA would be fantastic.
It really would. Good on you. Go for it. Good. Thank you.
I can go next. So again, kind of like what Elizabeth said, just thank you guys all for allowing us to come in and provide a little bit of information on Friday afternoons and taking the time to spend it with us, as well as taking the time to do some of the individual sessions with us. It's really been a wonderful experience. With regards to kind of my future, I will be completing my second level 2 fieldwork at a site that works with primarily people with chronic conditions, and working on some lifestyle management ways to incorporate some of the some lifestyle changes and managing some of the symptoms that they're experiencing. And I will also be completing my doctorate once I'm done with my second level 2 and completing my residency at a similar site. I love being able to work with people of really all ages. I love just kind of talking and getting to spread the word about OT and provide some of that general information, and get to talk with all of you guys. So I've really enjoyed being able to take the time with you.
Yeah, I also want to echo on to all the other OT students. Really enjoyed getting to know all of you and hearing from your life experiences. And as for me, my fieldwork is actually put on hold for a little bit. I was supposed to be at a children's hospital, but a few days ago, they told me that that placement has been canceled. So I'm waiting on, what there is for me in the future. And as for the Emeriti Center, I feel like I learned a lot about health and wellness, even as I was, creating these presentations with the other students. So I really want to bring that into all the other aspects of different populations that I work with in the future.
I guess I will finish that. So I'm planning to do my next fieldwork at a pediatric clinic as well. So very looking forward to that. I always have loved working with children. Another thing that I'm interested is international OT. So kind of advocating for OT in countries that don't really have this amazing profession. I don't really have any like specific plan on that, but something that I want to work on in the future. But also, I just want to also thank you for coming to our sessions. I was really able to grow and learn a lot from meeting you all and having amazing discussions on wellness and really how to live a meaningful life. And also just want to thank Jeanette for creating this experience for all of us. I know that this was kind of like a new setting for a lot of OT students, but it's been an amazing experience.
And I'll also just clarify really quickly if I can, because some of you may be wondering why everyone is going into pediatrics for their next rotation. It's because of our program. We really encourage students in their trainings to train with a wide and very diverse population. So we try to make sure that students get a very generalist education and exposure. And then once they're able to graduate, they can go in and start to thinking about where they want to specialize. So not necessarily indicative of future interests or anything like that.
So will we be having another batch of students in the summer, or are we going to wait till the fall?
I'm not sure. As I think some of you can tell, we have a lot of things that are changing because of the pandemic, sites that are having to delay or we're having to respond to them. So I think we're hopeful, and I'll make sure to keep you all posted. Fingers crossed we will, but we may not have anyone until the fall. We just have to see kind of where things shake out, but we'll be sure to keep you posted. I think on behalf of our division, we've really enjoyed and appreciated this relationship and want to make sure that we continue to maintain it in some way, shape, or form in the future.
And that's wonderful. We can't thank you enough. It's been a wonderful education for us. This intergenerational learning is fabulous. And I love my one-on-ones. I've had 2 now from each group. And I always learn something new, and I try to be challenging and throw stuff. And I always get great resources back and good suggestions. So you see Alyssa smiling because she was my my OT specialist for me. So I encourage you next semester or whatever, when we do this again, to sign up for the one-on-ones, even if you've done it before. It's really good experience for the student, but it's also good experience for us. And it's this intergenerational co-creation of learning together, which is so exciting for the Emeriti Center. We are on the cutting edge with this intergenerational, interdisciplinary, multicultural focus. So thank you all for participating. And we look forward to hearing from our students once they're off in their careers and seeing Professor Hall again. And thank you all for joining us.